These 16 characters are among the strongest in the entire series. But what if I tell you that each of them has one weakness that could easily make them lose any battle they fight? Yes, even Roger has one, but I'll get to him in a bit later, so let's start with Luffy first. Luffy is currently one of the strongest pirates alive, and even the elders aren't too big of a problem for him. However, he does have a few weaknesses, with one being that he gets tired too quickly. And what's worse is, once he's out of juice, he literally turns into a grandpa. Still, it's not that easy to tire him out, since he was still in great shape after defeating Rob Lucci, who is very strong. Thankfully, Luffy has another weakness that's much worse than this one. He is, well, dumb. There's no nicer way to say it. He's just so easy to trick. Like when Buggy tried to trick him every chance he had during Impelled Down, but Luffy didn't realize it at all. He also completely trusted the people of Whiskey Peak and fell asleep surrounded by hundreds of them. This would have been his end if not for his crew, who had just a bit more brain than him and noticed that it was a trap. There are still 15 weaknesses left to cover, and let's continue with Garp. Like his grandson, Garp is also portrayed as a carefree guy, but I don't think he is as naive as Luffy, so we'll have to find another weakness for him. Using water is also out of the question since he isn't even a devil fruit user. So is there anything we can use to defeat this monster? Well, firstly, there are speculations that he held back against Kuzan in their battle, which I can totally believe since he did let Luffy defeat him on Marineford as well. So I guess if you become good friends with him, he'll just let you in. But that would be really hard to do and would take years. Thankfully, there's an easier way. Just like what happened in the show, if someone kidnaps a person who is close to Garp, he will come flying to their rescue no matter who he has to fight against. This is certainly heroic of him, but it's also a very bad idea since without any planning, he would basically just walk into a trap. This is exactly what happened on Hachinosu when Blackbeard pirates kidnapped Kobe, which made Garp jump in even though he was severely outnumbered by multiple Titanic captains on the island. And we can't forget that what got Garp impaled by Shiryu is once again him caring for other people too much, because Shiryu was targeting Kobe with that attack. Finding Garp's weakness was easy because he cares about other people a lot, but how would you go about defeating someone who doesn't care about his companions at all? Although Blackbeard was a bit concerned for his crewmates when Kuzan froze them all, it's obvious that he would never actually risk his life for their sake. One thing that could be used against Blackbeard is his weird devil fruit. You see, although Yami Yami no Mi is a Logia, it doesn't protect Blackbeard from physical attacks, and he can still get punched normally. In addition to this, every physical punch Blackbeard takes hurts way more than usual, which is one of his biggest weaknesses. Another thing we could use against Blackbeard is his overconfidence. I mean, the guy literally traveled through the Grand Line on a wooden raft, which got completely destroyed when he tried to follow Luffy on a knock-up stream. I'm not sure how he even survived that. So I guess setting some sort of trap for him is a good idea because he probably wouldn't see it coming. 3 done, 13 more to go, and let's cover Kaido next. Now, you're probably wondering, what kind of weakness could Kaido have? Isn't he like invincible? Well, kinda, but there's actually one thing that would guarantee his defeat. Firstly, same as Blackbeard, he obviously doesn't care about his crewmates, so using them is out of the question. The guy was even prepared to kill his own daughter when she stood in his way. However, one thing most people forget about Kaido is that this guy got captured by the Marines a total of 18 times. But how? Well, to get captured so many times would mean that he got into many fights with some of the strongest Marines in the world, like Garp, Sengoku, or the Admirals. Also, an important thing to remember is that the Marines rarely attack Emperors on their own, which means that Kaido most likely came to them. So how can someone use this to defeat him? It's simple. You just send some good alcohol on Wano, wait for Kaido to get drunk, and soon enough he would probably barge into Marineford himself, trying to take on all 3 admirals at the same time. Man, this guy is just too reckless. Back to some good guys, we have Shanks, who is just so strong that it doesn't even matter what his weaknesses are. But don't worry, I think we can find some ways to defeat him. Firstly, he isn't afraid of the water since he doesn't have a devil fruit. And since he has the strongest Haki out of the current alive characters, he doesn't really need one. He defeated Kid, who was pretty strong, in a single attack. And while we didn't see much of Shanks in this battle since it was so short, we did see something really interesting. His fleet. Yes, it's full of wimps and people who can't fight even if their lives depended on it. But the fact is that Shanks deeply cares about them. When he foresaw that Kid would annihilate his fleet, his face immediately changed and he became terrified, instantly taking Kid seriously and defeating him as quickly as possible. So how can this weakness be used against him? Well, imagine if Kid had more ships targeting Shanks' fleet from all sides. It would be pretty much impossible for him to protect them from all at the same time, which would leave him wide open to the attacks. Another pirate who had a crew too large for its own good is Whitebeard. However, the key difference here is that Whitebeard pirates are all great fighters and don't need constant protection, which makes them much better than Shanks' fleet. But as with all characters so far, Whitebeard still has one obvious weakness anyone could exploit. He sees everyone on his crew as his child. Now, although this in itself is not a problem, it leads to so many bad things happening during his pirating career. For example, he didn't realize that Teach was only on his crew to steal the Yami Yami Nomi. He let his guard down, which allows Squard to impale him with a sword, and most importantly, he literally destroyed half of his crew in order to save a single member. Yeah, I think you can easily see how this can be used in many ways to bring this legend down. There are still 10 more insanely strong characters left to cover, like Big Mom, Dragon, and even Roger. Can you guess what their biggest weaknesses are? Well, before we get to them, we need to cover Marco, who has one of the most powerful Zoan Devil Fruits in the entire show. The guy is used to tanking every single attack coming his way because he knows that they can't hurt him. That is, unless he gets Seastone cuffed. You see, Marco actually clashed with all 3 admirals during Marineford, and for the bigger part of the war, he looked like he wasn't even sweating. But the moment his Devil Fruit powers were disabled, he was pretty much useless. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cuffing someone with a Seastone isn't really a creative weakness, as it can be applied to anyone. And although that's true, it's way worse for Marco, as without his Devil Fruit powers, he would have to change his entire fighting style and start actually dodging attacks, which isn't something he is used to. So, on the surface, Big Mom seems pretty much unbeatable. She has a ridiculously powerful Devil Fruit, great hockey, and an impenetrable body. However, if we start to dig deeper, it's pretty evident that she has some issues that can be used against her. For example, sometimes she will demand a specific food, and if she doesn't get it, she will go berserk. In this state, she basically becomes a zombie. She is very predictable and will eventually become skinny and weak. However, in order for someone to exploit this weakness, they would first need to survive her berserk stage, and that's pretty much impossible. I mean, just ask the Giants. But thankfully, there's a much easier thing someone can do to easily overpower Big Mom. Just break her favorite picture of Mother Carmel. Big Mom loves this picture so much that if anything happens to it, she will immediately enter a meltdown. And during it, she is completely vulnerable to attacks. We've actually seen this in the series when Beige's plan was to break this photo to paralyze Big Mom and finish her off, which is a plan that would have easily succeeded if the crew was just a little bit luckier. A character who is as powerful as the Emperors, but tends to get forgotten, is Odin. This dude was unmatched among the people of Wano and instantly became Whitebeard's strongest crew member after convincing him to join. Also, we can't forget that he made that huge X on Kaido's chest that haunts him to this day. So, is there any way to deal with this guy? Well, yeah, pretty simple one actually. You see, after Odin returned to Wano, he instantly wanted to defeat Kaido for all the bad things he and Orochi did. However, when he got there, Orochi pretty much convinced him that Kaido would leave in 5 years if Odin did what he was told. So, yeah, this guy might even be more naive than Luffy. Not only did Kaido not leave, but he also grew in power over those years, which was a surprise to no one but Odin, who never expected his enemy to lie. So I guess if you want to defeat Odin, you can just kidnap a few Wano citizens and he'll do whatever the heck you tell him. The next on the list is Monkey D. Dragon, and this is going to be the quickest section so far. The biggest weakness of this guy is that he doesn't do anything. Whenever there was a chance for him to appear, he decided not to, and this has been going on for over 25 years. His good friend Vegapunk is getting assassinated. No thanks. His son is trapped on Egghead. No thanks. Every big group in the world is making their move. Nah. This meme was pretty pretty much made for him. Okay, that's pretty funny, but we still have 6 characters left, and let's cover one of the admirals next. Although Fujitora may not seem as scary as other admirals, he is still a very strong character who was able to easily match both Zoro and Sabo. His Gravity Devil Fruit is also incredibly powerful, allowing him to deal massive amounts of damage. However, this is exactly where his biggest weakness lies. Let me explain. You see, in order to utilize his powers to their full potential, he is bound to do a lot of damage to everything around him, which could include innocent people. And judging by Fujitora's personality, this isn't something he would ever do. For example, during Dressrosa, he was forced to let Luffy and the others escape because there were a lot of civilians around and he didn't want to risk hurting them. Now, to be fair, he did almost send a meteor down on Marioa, but that place is full of celestial dragons and we already know he doesn't really care about them. So setting up a battle against Fujitora in a crowded place would force him to hold back, which would make him a much easier target to defeat. Law seems like an unbeatable guy. He's smart, calculated, patient, and to top it all off, he has one of the strongest devil fruits in existence. However, even despite all that, there are some ways to defeat him. For example, if Law's opponent has strong armament haki, he won't be able to cut them using his room technique. Now, Law's devil fruit is pretty versatile, so he could still perform other attacks, but the problem is, all of those attacks consume so much stamina, which is why he couldn't use them often. Also, if the opponent knows how Law's devil fruit works, they could just keep their distance and try to tire him out. Now, this would still be incredibly hard to pull off, but at least it would be a much better option than just attacking Law head on. Another supernova I have to mention is, of course, Kid, who won't tire out as easily as Law. But that's not an issue because he suffers from some much simpler problems. And one of those is related to his devil fruit. You see, although his devil fruit's magnetic powers can be used to assemble multiple different types of weapons to help him in many different situations, none of that really matters if there is no metal lying around. So battling Kid somewhere where there's no metal would instantly weaken him by a lot. However, that's not all, because Kid still has another weakness we can exploit. As you already know, Kid often overestimates his strength and goes after guys way out of his league. He also attacks without any clear plan in mind and just rushes in with brute strength. This could easily be exploited by setting some sort of ambush and baiting Kid to attack. Before we explain what Roger's greatest weakness is, let's first quickly cover the weaknesses of Zoro and Sanji. Sanji's Germa modifications gave him a giant power-up, which means that there shouldn't be any easy ways to trick and defeat him, except there is one. The one problem that has haunted Sanji since the beginning of the show is his love for all women and his vow to never lay a finger on them. And this is much more than just a small gag in the show, as it puts him in seriously dangerous situations multiple times. Like when he couldn't attack Mr. 2 because he put on Nami's face, when he let Khalifa beat him up, or when he was okay with Viola killing him. Yeah, this guy may have the biggest and most obvious weakness out of any character in the show. But what about his rival, Zoro? Surely he would be much harder to defeat, right? Well, maybe, but not by a lot. You see, Zoro is one of the best swordsmen in the world and was able to deal serious damage to some of the strongest people alive. And although that's pretty scary, Zoro has one ridiculous weakness that makes him look like a complete amateur: his sense of direction. There are a bunch of ways someone could use this against him, but the easiest one is probably just to take him to some kind of big mansion and fight him there. The guy would instantly get lost and probably wouldn't find his way back for years. Another less talked about weakness of Zoro's is his bad habit of not taking a fight seriously until he is on the brink of death. So one good way of avoiding a fight against full power Zoro would be to try and end it as fast as possible. Although that's easier said than done. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's cover what the biggest weakness of the Pirate King is. As far as we know, this guy clashed millions of times with the strongest pirates of his era, defeated 3 future emperors and rocks on God Valley, and has seemingly never lost a battle before. He also has a super powerful crew to rely on. No outside people who could be used to threaten him, no weakness to water, nothing. However, there is one thing that could potentially get him in huge trouble. You see, during the Ed War, Roger was attacked by Shiki's massive fleet, and it was pretty obvious that his crew had almost no chance of winning. So what did Roger do? Well, instead of running away, he decided to stay and fight. He survived this battle by sheer luck because a sudden storm sunk Shiki's fleet. But if it wasn't for that, Roger pirates would have been completely destroyed. So, Roger's greatest weakness is that he never runs from a fight, even if the odds are completely against him. Click on this video next, where I created the weakest character in One Piece. What are you waiting for? Click it.